Western forces, primarily those of the United States, have now carried out 5 rounds of airstrikes against Houthi rebels in Yemen, who attack ships in the Red Sea with missiles, drones and boarding parties. But the history of the British government's attitude towards them is an unexpected one. To explore it, I'm joined by Yemeni expert analyst Baraa Shiban from the Royal United Services Institute. Very nice to see you indeed. Let's begin to try to understand these Houthis. First of all, and I mean this very literally, what do they believe in? So
the Houthis is a theological movement. They believe in summary, they believe in the right or the divine right to rule for the Houthi family. This comes from it's part of a more complicated history in Yemen. But Yemen in 1962 became a republic, which for the founder of the Houthi movement, his father did not take with great joy, let's say. And that's why he didn't sit well with the idea of having a parliament with political parties, which Yemen kind of endorsed a plural political system post-1990. So the method of having a multi-party system inside Yemen did not sit with the Houthi family specifically, but then it coincided with the founder of the movement having this great, I would say, admiration towards the Islamic Revolution of Iran. So he shared with revolutionary Iran the vision of what do they see in the region, which is they want to disrupt what they believe is a U.S.-led regional order. And that's why they have a lot of animosity towards specifically Israel and Saudi Arabia, being the biggest U.S. partners in the region, which the U.S. have kind of, for decades really, have relied on to have a form of like, these are the main partners, and then the region kind of, settle around the form of arrangements between those two.
Does the conflict between Shia and Sunni play a part in this?
It plays a part, but that's not the main instigator. That's not the reason why they're fighting. The Houthis, I'd like to remind the public, in 2011, Yemen, like many Arab countries, had the Arab Spring, pro-democracy movement that went to the streets and calling for actual political changes and reform. The Houthis joined that initial protest, but then later on started to kind of not settle with, well, let's say, the calls for the young youth, the women, the activists who were calling for pro-democracy chants in the squares of Sana'a. So the reality is they started immediately after they took control over the capital. They launched a coup, which literally they blocked the political transition, which we had set to have elections, a referendum, because the idea is not within their political framework. That's not the political mindset of the Houthi movement, and that's why immediately when they took control over the capital, they banned political parties, they imprisoned journalists, they took hundreds of activists to prison. Civil society was banned, newspapers were banned from printing, and the move towards a more open political system that we witnessed in Sana'a post the Arab Spring quickly went the other direction.
You mentioned what the political conditions are like under the Houthis, where they're in charge. What are the economic conditions like?
The Houthis is a military wing. They have since their creation, they have this admiration towards Iran and Hezbollah, being a military wing, but they have shown basically they can't govern. So under the Houthi control, they've tried to incorporate the establishment structure within their group. As a result, the governance structure in Sana'a had collapsed. So services are not being delivered. People don't know this, but even the public salaries in all Houthi-controlled areas haven't been paid since mid-2016, and that's made a lot of people, many people, angry. Actually, many people don't know this, but only a few days before the war in Gaza started, there were mass protests in Sana'a, in the cities that they control. And one way to avoid that, I would say, local dissent is if you create this enemy abroad. try to distract the attention by actually we are in part of a much bigger war right now. So it's not time for you to criticize. It's not time for you to call for your salaries, pay, deliver services and so on, because we are engaged in this war.
Classic technique. You list a series of very unattractive qualities as far as the West is concerned. Why then has Britain not had why has Britain not had a clear-cut and consistent view of the Houthis? And can you remind us of some of the diplomatic interventions that Britain has made in recent years?
Well, given that, I mean, I live in the UK. I'm British now, and I would say I cannot say, but I'm very disappointed in how Britain approached this whole thing since the beginning. They wanted the Yemeni to basically tolerate that actually it is fine to have basically Houthi control to a level. Not because I would say it's misintention. It's basically, some part of it is like they don't understand how the situation is. No one actually paid attention to what the Houthis are saying. Literally, their chant says, and I quote, "Death to America, death to Israel, damn on the Jews, and victory to Islam." Not a very, I would say, tolerant and promising slogan that actually is promising prosperous life for the Yemeni people. And if you want to translate this, just look at look at how their actions are on the ground. Even women have been imprisoned and tortured inside Houthi prisons. As we speak, next week they've scheduled a women's rights activist to a death penalty. So a very, very grim situation.
But under Jeremy Hunt as our Foreign Secretary, what was our attitude to the Houthis? What were we urging the Yemeni government and the Saudis to do at that time?
Unfortunately, in 2018, in the west coast of Yemen, that's in the coast, looking over the Red Sea, literally where these attacks are happening right now. Jeremy Hunt, the coalition, there was a military intervention that came very, very close to actually dislodging the Houthis from the whole west coast of Yemen. Unfortunately, Jeremy Hunt came in to intervene as part of a bigger diplomatic intervention to pressure the Yemeni government and the Saudis to halt the operation in order to broker something called the Stockholm Agreement. In short, they promised that both forces are going to redeploy from the important strategic port of Hodeidah, that's in the west coast of Yemen. Surprise, surprise. The Yemeni forces did redeploy, the Houthis didn't. When they wanted then to basically visit to attack again, because actually they were literally 4 kilometers away from the port of Hodeidah, Jeremy Hunt had to fly to the UAE and to Saudi Arabia, and then went into Aden to meet the Yemeni foreign minister. And he said on ITV, he delivered a very difficult message. Basically, he told them, you should not attack the port. I then revisited. I personally met the Yemeni former foreign minister. I asked him, and he said, if it wasn't for the British, we would have ended this a long, long time ago.
That is extraordinary. May I ask you about your personal history? You live in the United Kingdom, but you were forced out of Yemen.
Yes, unfortunately, yeah.
Tell me why. What do you believe would have happened to you if you'd remained in Sana'a?
I'll tell you the story of two of my fellow activists. They were two bright journalists who I met in the square. Immediately in 2015, they were arrested. And when the Saudi-led coalition airstrikes started, in order to make an example out of anyone who would oppose them, they took them and then they placed them inside a weapon depot, knowing that the Saudis are going to bomb them. And unfortunately, both of them died. This is just to make an example about anyone who would oppose them in the future. I have no doubt. It's not just me. Just look at the reports by Amnesty International, by Human Rights Watch. Any report would tell you how they've been treating their any form of dissent inside their areas.
Extraordinary. I've learned a lot from your testimony this morning. Thank you very much for coming on GBNews and really informing us on the situation.
Thank you.
Many thanks to Baraa Shiban.